Hi my Panzer friends! In this video I want to teach you advanced historical tactics to be used especially with the Tiger tank. I will show you what to do when spotting an enemy tank with step-by-step instructions for every crew member to efficiently and successfully destroy the tank. Most of the information in this video is coming straight from the Tigerfibel, the official German manual for the Tiger tank released in 1943. The tactics and procedures you're about to see have been applied in World War II exactly the same. The information is also tested in-game already. Shells and aiming optics are correctly simulated, so shells fly exactly as depicted in the Tigerfibel. Great respect to the devs for getting it right. And without further ado, let's get into it. The first very important thing you need to understand is what the spikes in the scope mean. These spikes will later on be the most important part of the whole procedure. You will work with a scale called bars. The main spike in the middle of the scope is 4 bars high and wide. The smaller spikes on the side are 2 bars high and wide. The distance between the tops of the spikes are also 4 bars wide. It's very important to memorize this if you're playing gunner, as you will have to use it all the time while operating the scope. Also, do note that you should zoom in using the Q key when using the spikes to measure something. Alright, now let's go with the main part of the video. We are starting right here in this position, and we are the commander of the tank. We are searching for enemies and finally spot an enemy tank. The first thing you want to do is inform your crew that there is an enemy tank. Call out the clock time of the target, which is especially important for the driver in the next step. Step number 2 is angling the tank. The Tiger has most armor on its 10.5 o'clock, 1.5 o'clock, 4.5 o'clock and 7.5 o'clock position. The 10.5 o'clock position is called breakfast, the 1.5 o'clock position is called lunch, the 4.5 o'clock position is called tea time, and the 7.5 o'clock is called dinner. These positions are also referred to as meal times. The commander should tell which way to angle the tank. Call out angle on breakfast, for example. The whole call out together with the previous step would go something like this. An enemy tank spotted, 9.5 o'clock position, angle on breakfast. The driver now has to turn the tank so the enemy goes from the 9.5 o'clock position to the 10.5 o'clock position. In the meantime, the gunner must traverse the turret on the 10.5 o'clock position as well. This can work really fast and efficiently with a bit of practice and a well-coordinated crew. Perfect! Now you position the Tiger to make most use of its armor. The next step is to identify the target. The commander and gunner can do this best as they have a higher magnification available to them. The first to identify the type of tank should call it out, at least if it's a light or heavy tank. In the same step, you should also roughly determine if the tank is more than 1,500 meters away. With this information we can go over to the next step, deciding on which shell to use. Use a Sprenggranate or HE shell for trucks, cars, infantry, parks, generally on everything that isn't armored. Use a Panzergranate 39 called APC-BC in-game for most armored targets that are up to 2,000 meters away. If you identified a heavy tank that you need lots of penetration for, use the Panzergranate 40 called APCR in-game. Be advised, however, that this shell is only suited for engagements below 1,500 meters due to spread. In my example, it's a heavy tank and is clearly closer than 1,500 meters. I'm choosing the Panzergranate 40. If you found your shell of choice, call it out for the gunner. As gunner, immediately switch to the commanded shell by using the number keys. In the next step, we have to estimate the distance to the target. For this, you gotta pop your head out of the tank. The reason for this is that distances are way underestimated when looking through a magnified optic. This also applies to postscriptum, as I've seen when playing. My gunner estimated the distance to be 300 meters when it actually was well over 500 meters. That means only the commander and driver can do this. Distances are estimated like this. First, estimate a distance that's surely closer than the target. Secondly, estimate a distance that's surely beyond the target. Now take the average of them both. Estimate the distances in 100 meter steps. If you are very sure, you can also take a 50 meter step. It doesn't need to be more exact, as firstly, estimating itself is quite inaccurate, and secondly, there is a relatively high margin of error, at least for usual engagement distances. So don't stress yourself to get your estimation point on. 100 meters more or less is not that big deal. Except of course on very long distances or if you need to hit very precisely. If you're the driver, open the hatch and also try to do the same. If you suspect enemies nearby, better stay safe in the tank. If you're able to take an estimate of the distance, call it out for the commander. If you calculated your average, read it back to the commander as well when you're finished. You, as commander, then calculate the average of your estimate and the one by the driver. This will then be the distance you will work with from now on. In my case, that's 500 meters. In the next step, we're going to calculate the so-called naval sight. That is the distance we need to set the sight to hit the target exactly in the middle, hence the name naval sight. To calculate the naval sight, the gunner has to measure the target's height in bars using the scope. As soon as the gunner reported back the amount of bars, in our example 4 bars, you can begin calculating the naval sight. First, divide the reported height in bars by 2, so you split it in half. This gives you the so-called naval height. Now take the distance you estimated or measured before and add 100 meters for every bar of naval height. If naval height is 2 bars, add 200 meters to your distance. If naval height is 1.5 bars, add 150 meters, and so on. Our Panther right here has a height of 4 bars, so naval height is 2 bars. I am adding 200 meters to our estimated distance of 500 meters. Last but not least, you have to adjust for the Panzergranate 40, called EPCR in-game if you forgot already. Skip this step if you're using the Panzergranate 39 or HE Sprenggranate. It's actually quite simple. If your target is more than 600 meters away, subtract 100 from your calculated naval sight. If the target is more than 1100 meters away, subtract 200 from your naval sight. I don't have to make any adjustments as the target in this example is closer than 600 meters. That's everything you need to take a shot. Now pass the information to the gunner and tell him to open fire. First call out the type of shell to be used again, then the naval sighting distance you calculated, and finally any lead if the target is moving. The call out in my example is Panzergranate 40, sight 700, no lead, fire at will. Or in German, Panzergranate 40, Visier 700, kein Vorhalt, Feuer frei. As gunner, you now hold down the X key, scroll up or down until you selected the correct sighting distance and position the main spike on the target. On the target actually means below the target. The top of the spike needs to sit exactly where the tracks touch the ground, or if you're shooting at infantry, where the feet touch the ground. It's also important to know that the cannon shoots half a meter to the right, because the scope is positioned half a meter to the left of the cannon. If everything is ready, take the shot and see the magic happen. Adjust as needed and take the next shot until the tank is destroyed. And that's it! Before stopping the video, I highly recommend you to download my translation of the Tigerfibel. I authentically translated a total of 29 pages packed with knowledge and information. I also created a single-page cheat sheet where I've summarized all the information in this video, easily readable even in the heat of the battle, so you never ever forgot how to calculate the naval sight or maybe even how many bars there are on the scope. It's a big help and also contains some more information that I haven't addressed in this video. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time.